Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. During this uncertain time, we are grateful that you have chosen to spend this time with ANAB and Qualtrics as we dive into the importance of continued learning, during the COVID-19 pandemic. We're very excited to offer this webinar to you, and kind of as a way to give back to your organizations as we all try to adapt to the current climate that we're under. So during this webinar, we're going to touch on some key pain points and some key topics. We're going to talk about the benefits of continued learning for individuals and organizations, the challenges of remote learning, and how to make remote learning work for you and your organization, and then how COVID-19 pandemic will reshape learning industry kind of moving forward once this is over. And then I'm going to take a couple minutes to dive into Qualtrics and show you how Qualtrics is helping our current customer base during this time as well. So before we get started, I do want to touch on a couple of housekeeping items. This will absolutely be recorded. We're recording it now. So if you do want to watch it at a different time or share it with others within your organization, you will have that recording and are able to do so. And we're also going to be having a question and answer session towards the end of the presentation. So if you have questions throughout the presentation, please feel free to put those into the Q&A Zoom application. We'll be happy to address those. So my name is Karen Arribiaga, and I'm an account executive here at Qualtrics. Because we have a mix of attendees on today between customers and people that have never even heard of Qualtrics, I do want to give you some background about who we are. Qualtrics is a compliance software platform specifically designed to manage quality initiatives. So organizations usually turn to us when they're looking to reduce or eliminate the burden associated with manual and sometimes paper-based systems by automating key processes. We've been around since '93, and that was when our parent company was pursuing ISO 9001. They were looking for a way to streamline the process to ensure that no details were overlooked. So they started from scratch and ultimately built the framework that would become Qualtrics. They crushed their audit. The assessors were impressed and suggested that this is something that others could benefit from. And so Qualtrics was started. So today, more than 25 years later, we are a leader in the quality and compliance industry, and we're happy to count several accrediting bodies among our customers, including today's presenter, ANAB. So at this time, I want to introduce you to Natalia. Natalia Larimer is currently responsible for managing ANAB training business. Natalia's 16-year career in the conformity assessment industry includes business development and management of the accreditation services within the voluntary, as well as Canadian and U.S. regulatory frameworks. Prior to joining ANAB in August 2014, Natalia spent more than 10 years working with SCC, where she started in the standards development group and moved to accreditation. Her portfolio work with industry groups and standards developing committees, as well as delivering the educational sessions on sector-specific programs, accreditation, and international accreditation frameworks. So at this point, Natalia, I welcome you to take the screen. I'm going to stop sharing and feel free to show yours.
Thank you, Karen, and welcome everybody. If I did this correctly, you should be seeing the first slide of my presentation.
And I see it.
Awesome. Love it when technology works. We're off to a good start. Well, I'd like to second Karen saying thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. This is definitely a different time for all of us, and we do appreciate you spending an hour of your time with us today. I'd like to bring out to your attention the topic of today's conference webinar is the importance of continuing learning. I think we're all finding ourselves in a different time right now where we are questioning what is now and what's going to happen in the future, what lays ahead. So future is ahead. So why now? As we are starting to see the light at the end of the tunnel in this pandemic situation, the questions we can't avoid asking, what is next? The truth is, nobody knows what truly is going to happen next, with the exception that the world will go on and we will bounce. Whether continuing education is mandated by your professional certification licensing criteria, the big picture for everyone is understanding the value of continuing education overall. This is a downtime for many businesses, making this the perfect opportunity to invest in training, learning, whether individual or organization as a whole. The pandemic won't last forever, and those who are ready to hit the ground running early on will have the biggest competitive advantage. Even though pandemic has slowed down many markets, things are still changing, and the need to adapt both professionally and personally is still there. Continuing education is the one tool that helps one stay up to date with the ever-changing industry. Many of us, when hearing reference to training, picture the third party providing instructions on a specific subject. But that approach, although most popular, definitely is not the only one of many available to an organization or an individual. As I just mentioned, not all training comes from outside and is provided by a third party. Keep in mind that not all training has to be paid for. Even third-party training providers do have free training available. Over the next few slides, we will look at the types of training described in this slide in a little more detail. One thing to remember, training is an investment, whether financial, timing, or both. So when selecting the training provider, do your research. Unfortunately, like with every industry, not all training is equal. One big question to ask, does the training provider understand your industry or the industry you're seeking to be trained in and day-to-day reality of that industry? What opinions and expertise were consulted during the development of the materials? For example, accreditation-related training is an accreditation body that provides that training. Certification-related training, is it a certification body providing that training? Now, that's not necessarily the case that those areas have to be provided by people that are actually currently in the industry. The question is, the main question, what technical knowledge and industry experience is used to develop that training? As a person who's investing, you have the right to ask that question. Another thing to consider, if you consider a private training for on-site for your facilities, for your employees, is it customizable or tailored to your industry? And what I mean by that, for example, if you're getting trained in ISO OAC 17025 internal auditing, and your organization is an electrical testing laboratory, if the company who's coming in to train you, providing you with forensic testing examples, that won't do much good for your staff. So the examples in that training has to be provided and be appropriate for the audience. When selecting your courses, look at how training progress is being monitored. Quizzes, exams, exercises, all good ways to reinforce the training. This will only help you succeed. As an example, all ANAB self-paced online courses incorporate exercises and quizzes embedded to show progress and reinforce the materials. The personnel certification licensing requirements. I get regular question whether our courses will meet the criteria for specific certification licensing. Always remember that this information is best answered by an entity that provides you with that certification or licensing. Some will accept any course. Some will accept only courses with a specific number of hours. Some will accept only certain type of providers. Others don't care what you do as long as you get the training. Get that information firsthand and then start your research. But remember, don't fall for as an example. Example does not mean mandated. Look for options that would satisfy the requirement, yet are suitable for your needs, whether financial, schedules, or other. When looking at certificates, make sure that the entity issuing certificate and has the certificate you will receive has the required attributes. For example, number of hours, completion versus attendance. And keep in mind, many of the courses don't have any certificates. Now let's talk about a little bit about internal training. So your internal organizational training. When deciding on internal training programs, each organization is different. Not all types of training are best to be done internally. For example, if the intent is to educate your personnel on external accreditation criteria, that information may be best provided by a third party, responsible for implementing that criteria and or developing it, to make sure all the whys can be answered. Many businesses underestimate the importance of QMS refresher training. People develop bad habits and tend to deviate from the process. Refresher QMS can help organizations avoid a number of nonconformities resulting from bad habits. So this is the perfect timing to do a couple of hours of that QMS refresher for your staff. It doesn't have to be complicated, just the overall implementation of why you do what you do. The key for management is to make the training an objective. It also works well when staff are assigned a topic. So when staff have to teach or present to other staff, they learn it much better, especially knowing they will have to defend and explain it, and even more so if their boss is listening. And right now, with everyone physically separated, having meetings allows people to still feel connected and feel in a loop. So win-win situation for all. When putting your internal program together, just like with external training, there are things to keep in mind. Courses should be dynamic and interactive. Even your basic QMS refresher that you're doing internally should have some polling questions, graphic. You need to keep people engaged. Be aware of the time frame. Too long, you will lose your audience. Most struggle sitting at the computer looking at the slides being read to them for prolonged periods of time. Too short, people won't take it seriously. How many times do you hear, oh, I just got this minimal thing in the morning, it won't take too long, 15 minutes, I'll be out. Those too short of a training sessions take focus away and become more something to fit in a daily schedule. When you're doing that internal training, stick to your schedule. Remote training is not easy. People need to know and rely on when the next break is coming. Break more often than you normally would and stick to your schedule. Avoid complicated or introducing new platforms. With everyone remote, it is not a good time to implement a new platform unless you absolutely have to. And trust me, your IT will thank you for it. Throw in quizzes just to make sure people are paying attention. This will also keep them more engaged if they know one is coming up. Mentoring. Many of us don't think mentoring as an official training, but it is. The reason why some mentoring setups are not successful is because we tend to pick people who are best at their jobs because, well, let's face it, best at their job should be best to relay the knowledge, but that's not so simple. Not every best at their job makes a good mentor. Human factors play a huge role in being able to pass knowledge. For mentoring to succeed, it must be structured. Document the objectives and deliverables. Set realistic, achievable timeframes. As a manager, to ensure successful mentoring partnership, do regular check-ins with both parties. Make sure to touch base separately with each other. Sometimes you learn better when the other party is not present. Address any issues as they come up. Don't wait till the end. It will make the process a lot less painless for all parties and give an insight early on if the setup is appropriate. Job shadowing. Another situation that is not viewed as typical training, but again it is. It results in a knowledge obtained that one has not had before. Understandably, that it may not work well for many under current circumstances, but it may work for some. Having people job shadow that would have normally never interact could benefit the businesses as well as an individual in many ways. It could allow for exchange of ideas you may otherwise never get. It could discover talent that you never knew you had. It may allow employees to see other opportunities within the company, so keep the retention and prevent them from looking elsewhere. It creates a possible backup for staff in case of unexpected or prolonged leaves. It may decrease the time for job openings that stay unfilled. But again, like with anything, it must have the structure, objectives, deliverables, and a timeline. When selecting training as an individual, not company mandating training, it is important to know your goal. You have to first define what it is that you want to achieve at the end. Do you want to focus on what you do now or branch out? Select your training deliverables. I want to have X or become X at the end. What training do I need to get there? Get that information firsthand. You want to become certified as a phone handler, call the certification organization and see what it is that you need to become that person. For example, again, if you want to be an auditor, contact a certification body. Make sure to ask if those requirements are for that certification body or are industry-wide. This could help in defining and sessional training needs. Research training needs, just like described in a previous slide, not all training is equal. Take advantage of free webinars and training opportunities. It can help you identify the path forward. Connect with colleagues in the same field or in desirable field. LinkedIn, professional organization. Reach out to entities in the same field. Communication and connecting with others is the key in an individual success. Now let's look at remote training, as it is its own topic. In this day and time, anything but remote is out of the question. We have to remember that current situation will change the way we do business. More and more companies are global. In today's reality, most non-global companies are no longer in the same office, even if they were a few weeks ago. Remote everything will pick up momentum and will not go away after this. Especially remote training, where cost of travel is eliminated. People can still be accessible in their quote-unquote offices and be home with their families in the evening. However, this approach does not come without negatives. Remote training does provide a disconnect between your trainer and trainee. It is a lot harder to concentrate, and there are a lot more distractions. But there are things to keep in mind that will make this approach a lot easier and will become second nature for both as the time goes by. One thing to keep in mind, not everything can be done remote. We at ANAB actually had to postpone a lot of our lead assessor trainings, as those must be done in person. If at the end of the day, whatever you are training to do has to be done by constant group work, that is unlikely remote approach is best. For example, leading audit teams. You need that human-to-human constant interaction. And in order to complete the grade, your instructors have to be able to observe your interactions. But if you are in remote training, some things to keep in mind. If you are the presenter, log in early. Eliminates a lot of issues if everybody's trying to log in at 11 and the system is down. Download presentations to your computer. No cloud-based system, however good it is ever 100% reliable. Video. That is a tough one. It does help greatly with engagement because you can still see people you're interacting with, but it could slow down your system. Not to mention all the embarrassing things that can happen we're seeing right now as remote video innings becoming more and more widely used. Close all the applications on your computer. No one needs to see your discussion with HR. It could happen even if you don't mean to. I would also recommend changing background screens to something more generic. Presentations do close unexpectedly, and well, we have all seen the screensavers that should not have been shared. Notifications. Stop those email bings. Even in the background, they could be very destructive to the audience. Practice. Like with everything, do a run. It's kind of common sense, but you'd be surprised how many people don't practice their presentation before delivering to the public. And once again, stick to that schedule. Now, things to keep in mind when you're a participant. Once again, log in early. Mute your line and keep checking throughout to make sure it is muted. It sometimes happens that you accidentally unmute it. We're all right now in the same boat. We get it. Kids cry, dogs bark. In those days, it is okay. When you're speaking for whatever reason, it happens. We get it. But no one wants or needs to listen to it all whole, to that while the lecture is in progress. Personally, I went from being home completely alone full days to having another four people and 3 dogs in my house. It is never quiet. I get it. Everybody gets it. Just be aware of it. Treat training as a major project. After all, you have investing your money and your time. You wouldn't present on hand something to your boss without making sure you allocated the appropriate time and resources to whatever that is on the table. Do the same for training. Set your goals. Stay on track. It is hard, but it does pay off and get easier as the time goes by. Try not to schedule anything too close either before or after the allocated training time. Your brain needs to have the time to switch gears. Email and phone can wait. Distraction, eliminating it, especially now with many of us adjusting to work from home and having the entire household with us, it is hard, but not impossible. All we ask is do your best. All anyone can expect at this time. Take notes. We don't do that very much, but even if something is on the slide, writing it down reinforces the object and helps you keep engaged. Stay engaged. Avoid social media. I know it's easy to just pop into that Facebook for 1 second, but that will distract your mind. Avoid answering phone calls. Just don't do it. You lose time that you're unlikely to catch up on. We all do it. Breaking news. That can wait. How many times I wish there was a software in my classrooms where I could stop people from getting onto those news sites. It is hard to break that habit, and it is very distracting for your own personal self. And then at the end of the day, reward yourself. Yes, we're adults, but we still need it. Learning as an adult is hard. So whether ice cream is your choice of reward, wine, chocolate, extra sleep, whatever works, set it and do it. Nothing helps stay engaged with your learning and then as a communicating on a subject with others. So engage with others. Engage with the instructor and participant, even if it is just through the chat box. Respond to poll questions. Do optional work. Again, engagement and reinforcement. The older we get, the more reinforcement our brain needs. Take courses with a buddy. Schedule check-in dates. Do assignment together. Discuss topics, even if you think you have a good understanding. It helps with reinforcement and makes you view other people's ideas. As we get closer to the end of my presentation, let's take a look at, in summary, what actual benefits of training there are. For an individual, taking every opportunity to get additional knowledge and training only opens up the horizons for individuals as well. Keeping pace with changing industry trends makes one a more desirable employee. It provides confidence and value. It demonstrates that an individual has the ability to research appropriate subjects, had the discipline to complete something, and demonstrates communication skills, because you either have to listen, you have to speak, or you have to write in all learning trainings provided. For organizations, you have to keep in mind, training is not just investment in your people. It is investment in the future of your business. Knowledge empowers, and empowered people feel motivated. Motivation provides results that translate into business success. Businesses that invest in their people have stronger teams and teams that move things together. Alignment and consistency among employees is achieved mainly through company-wide ongoing training initiatives. Consistency in operations leads to less time spent on correcting issues. All of that combined equals to increased productivity. I will leave you with one final thought. Invest into yourself, your people, and your organizations, because it is the only appropriate value-added training that will differentiate you from your competitors, either on individual or company-wide level. A little information on us. If you're interested in any of our training, please go ahead to our website. We are, as I mentioned, an accreditation body. We offer accreditation-related training, so the appropriate training for our industry. So we talk about the internal auditing, technical courses, as well as courses on accreditation-related standards. On this slide, you see my contact information. Please reach out if you have any questions, and if you want to discuss any of the topics we talked about in this presentation a little further. And we always look for suggestions to help the industry in the areas where we have the expertise or access to experts during the development of our training materials. So please let us know if there's any training that you are interested in but is not available. If we can't help you, we are likely to know of the types of entities that can. Again, I thank you for your time today and wish you all the best in your future endeavors.
Great. Thank you, Natalia, very, very much. I think that you had brought up a number of points that everybody here can really take away from the presentation. If you want to stop sharing, I will reshare my screen. Thank you.
All yours.
Haha, can you see my screen?
Yes.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Well, at this point, you know, Natalia talked about a number of different ways to conduct remote trainings, like using videos. And what I'm going to do at this point is kind of go through how some of our customers at Qualtrics are using our system to maintain their current training initiatives and even adopt new techniques. You know, as so many people are now working from home, and just to give you some feedback, the poll that we took said about 77% of you right now are working from home. So everyone's lives have changed significantly. And so I'm just going to share with you just how some of our customers are using the system to adapt. To start, Qualtrics is a hosted software as a service platform. So I take you to our login screen to simply just show you how we can access this system. Users access Qualtrics from any web browser and log in to access that information and perform tasks that pertain to their QMS. Platforms like ours offer users on-demand access to their QMS systems. So whether you're at the office or at home, you can make sure that deadlines and timelines are being met without interruption. You know, we've connected with a number of our customers in the recent weeks who have essential employees that are still reporting to the labs or the offices to do work, but then so many of them so many others are working from home. And so this hosted environment is really giving them that flexibility to adjust without missing a beat. So I'm gonna go ahead and log in. I'm gonna log in as Trevor, and Trevor happens to be a quality manager for this organization. And when I log in, the first page you're going to come to is your inbox, which is ultimately your to-do list. It's going to tell that individual who logs in all the tasks that they need to complete within Qualtrics. Now, one of the core features that Qualtrics offers is the ability to automate employee trainings. You know, so whether this is annual training or job-specific training or mentorship type trainings like Natalia mentioned, all of these can be designed and automated in Qualtrics. Now, as Trevor, you'll notice over here to the right where the testing and training portions are of the product, he has a couple of tests and trainings he needs to complete. Now, when you are told that you need to do a test or a training, you're going to receive notifications, and those notifications are going to look like this in your inbox, but those are also going to be tied to email notifications. And these are really key, especially when you have different people in different locations, and not everybody is in the same area like they once were. These notifications will continually will continue to go out to these individuals based on a specific timeline that you've created. And if it gets to this expedited step, like you can see that we have one here for weighing and sampling, I simply have not completed this training that I need to. Because it's at the expedited state, my manager has now been notified, so that person can actually reach out to me and make sure that I get this done. And you can imagine that is critical in the type of scenario that we're in today, where you just are not going to be able to go to somebody's desk and make sure that they've completed something. The system is going to make sure that they're staying on top of it. So let's talk through some examples. Natalia mentioned that you might find that this is a great time to really evaluate your QMS system and to look for opportunities for improvement. Well, let's look at an example of that. You may have, maybe you're doing management review or some internal auditing at this time, and you notice that you've had a number of correction action requests around equipment maintenance. Well, you've decided that you need to revamp your standard operating procedure around how you are really tracking your equipment. That's something that can be done in our system. We have a document management system that allows you to approve, review, and edit documents. And then when you go to publish that document, the next step after that is to make sure that everybody in your organization is now familiar with that new standard operating procedure that has been developed and released. The easiest way to do that within Qualtrics is through what we call acknowledgement tests. Acknowledgement tests are tests that are short and that can be automatically sent to a predefined group of people every time a new standard operating procedure or document has been published. So I've got an example of one of those right here. If I click this test and I open it up, you'll see that it's pretty straightforward and simple. This is the new document that has been managed within Qualtrics and is now released with that new published revision. And I need all the individuals that get this test to read that latest published revision, click yes, and hit submit. Pretty straightforward. Now, the next question I usually get is, well, how do you make sure that people actually read that test? How do you make sure that they understood that or read that document? How do you make sure that they retain that information? Well, you can actually do this by changing these questions. You have the ability to make true, false, multiple choice questions really around those edits that you made to track competency. Because if they didn't take the time to really listen or pay attention to that document, they might not be able to pass your test questions. So at this point, I would just hit submit, and that test is done. And now quality managers and directors can run reports to see that information that has been completed. Acknowledgement tests are pretty straightforward. You also have the ability in Qualtrics to do more in-depth and detailed trainings within our system. So we see a number of our users use this portion of our product in many different ways, whether this is onboarding training or safety or OSHA training, or even training that happens on a recurring basis. So for example, at Qualtrics, we actually use our own system. We're under ISO 9001 as a company. And when we started putting in new procedures for COVID-19, our HR department actually created a new standard operating procedure and document that they created within Qualtrics, and then put training behind that document and sent it out organizationally wide. So there's just really, the sky is the limit of what types of trainings you can actually administer within our system. So let's look at an example here for bloodborne pathogen trainings. You'll notice that it's already a little bit more detailed from the acknowledgement test example we did. Through this training, what we're doing is we're giving all of the individuals a description of the training. So in this case, this is our annual bloodborne pathogen training and test that somebody needs to partake in. They need to familiarize themselves with these resources, which could be a document in the system or maybe a video that they need to watch. It can be outside resources. You could even tell somebody to go learn how to drive a forklift, or potentially go on YouTube and watch a specific video on fire safety. Completely up to you what resources you're pointing individuals to. When Natalia mentioned the mentoring programs, or even just watching peers do things within your different organization, this is an opportunity to even spell out that. Because when you're under ISO, you still have to prove that you're keeping record of those training activities. And that's what this system is allowing you to do. So by creating your training, pointing people to resources, once somebody has familiarized themselves with those resources, they can simply type in the date that they were trained, and then even attach a document of completion or certificate. If it's something like mentoring or job-specific training, and you have to prove that somebody did a test within a certain parameter or calculation, you could even update those records too, so that record is associated with this training record. Once this is completed, you could just hit training is complete, and the system can even prompt you to take a test. So yes, I would like to take a test. And this is an example of a true false multiple choice test really tracking competency. So where you can actually conduct some of these trainings that you may have done in person, where you were getting everybody into a conference room, maybe pulling up a PowerPoint and going through these in more detail. Now you can actually facilitate those in a system like Qualtrics, where people can do them at their own time. If there's somebody that has a family that has to pay attention to their kids during the day and can't do the training until later in the evening, Qualtrics allows them to do that because they could do this at their own time and at their own leisure. You'll notice this test is multiple choice true false questions. You have the ability to make these tests as complicated or as simple as you want to within Qualtrics. We even have the ability to have multiple questions that continually rotate to make sure people aren't cheating off of each other. So I'm going to go ahead and take this test. I hope that we get all the right answers this time. And I'm going to hit submit. When I hit submit, the system's going to automatically grade that test for me. Now you get to choose what the passing rate is. In this case, it was 100%. If I did not get 100%, I would not have passed this test. However, you get to choose 75, 80, 90, up to you of what you want that percentage to be. Even once you've taken that test, you have the ability to show them the answers that they've got right and wrong if you want to show them those details. So now that that test has been taken and has been automatically graded for you, my manager has also been notified that I've taken this test and that I have passed. So I'm going to go back to my inbox. In this scenario only, this is a demo system. You can see that Trevor happens to be his own manager. That's usually not the case, but because Trevor is his own manager in this example, you can see that I have a completion sign off in my inbox to sign off on Trevor's training. So this is a great way for anybody that's managing those trainings to get notified when people complete these trainings. We also have the ability to do effectiveness review sign-offs if that's something that you're interested in within our system. When you open up that training record, you can see the full audit trail of everything that has happened in the system, the description, what they were trained on, and if they took the test and they passed. And so you have all those records available to you that are being automatically tracked within our system and Qualtrics. Now, one of the key things that's really nice about Qualtrics is the visibility that it gives to its users, especially quality departments. Again, I go back to out of the customers that we've talked to, a lot of the quality team members have been asked to work from home. So as they're working from home, they are still able to get the information they need about the training that are happening. And that visualization is coming through our reporting. Qualtrics has the ability to create your own reports or use some of our system reports. The two system reports that we really focus on for tests and trainings are these right here. Now, the first one's testing results. So let's pretend that in this time you've decided that you want to conduct some really detailed trainings. You've put the trainings out there, you've created different tests for people to take. However, people are getting those tests wrong, or they're getting some of those questions wrong. This is a great way to see what questions they're getting wrong and what the issues are. So I'm going to run this test for bloodborne pathogens for all users, and I want to see what questions people are getting right and what questions they're getting wrong. So you can see over here in this report under status, you can see failed or passed, how many times that they've taken, how many times that they failed it, and then view some of the information. So if I go to Ian's record, I can see specifically what he got right. Oh, and he passed that one. I want to find one that he failed. Here we go. Here's the failed one. So I can see that he got these questions wrong. And if I pulled somebody else's up, like Eric's, I can see what he has gotten wrong as well. And if some of those questions line up, like for instance, if everyone's taking the test and everyone's getting like the first two questions wrong, well, maybe there's a problem with the test that needs to be adjusted. Or maybe the training that you are providing isn't effective if it's enough. And you really need to make sure that you're focusing on a specific area a little bit harder for next time. Well, this visibility allows you to see that so you can make those adjustments. The other report that is very popular within Qualtrics is your training matrix report. This allows you to see out of all of your users which trainings have been assigned and which have been completed or not. So by running this report, You can see a quick list of all of their users within Qualtrics, what they've been assigned, and what has been completed, what's optional, and what has not been completed. On top of this visual that you have, you also have the ability to dive into people's personnel records. So I'm going to pick on Eric today, and we're going to pull up his record, and you can see who he is within the company, but then more important, his training details. So as you're creating different trainings and you're adapting to this right now, systems like Qualtrics can actually allow you to facilitate some of these trainings and give you the tracking that you need pretty easily when you're in a remote setting. Now with the Qualtrics product, it's constantly evolving with new functionality. You know, we have our most recent release that we've done with Qualtrics actually includes dashboard functionality. So I'm going to open this up. A great way for quality managers and directors or even owners to be able to get a pulse on their employees to see what things are being done and which ones are still outstanding. These dashboards can give you that high level view into that data. And so you can easily see which ones are still open and which ones still need to be completed, especially when you might be at home and others are in different areas. Now, testing and training is one portion of Qualtrics. Because Qualtrics is an all-in-one solution, customers have access to all Qualtrics functionality in one system. So this includes our document management and version tracking functions, our reporting, and the ability to use our workflows. So if you've ever been on one of our webinars before, you've probably have heard us talk about the power of process automation and our workflows. What workflows are, they're ways to automate processes where each step is defined with customizable fields and routed with automatic email alerts and notifications, kind of keeping tasks on time and holding employees accountable. If you're ever wanting to see more information about that, let us know. I'd be happy to point you in the right direction to get more information. I think the last thing I'll say about Qualtrics before we move to the Q&A section is at Qualtrics, we put a lot of energy into our customers' success and providing personalized training to those new customers when they get onboarded with our system. And because of that, we've actually had to change ourselves in how we've done some of our trainings. A couple of years ago, we too had to find ways to adjust how our customers expressed, because they expressed interest in doing trainings remotely. You know, before that, we used to go on site for a couple days and do more in-person trainings. Now, with technology the way it is, we've actually started seeing a shift to more remote trainings. And so we wanted to make sure that we're able to offer remote trainings, but still give that personalized hand touch experience that you get with some of those on-site trainings. And what we've done with our trainings is really divide them into like an 8 to 10 week program where we're really focusing on specific content. And what we have found is that with spreading out that training remotely and doing 2-hour sessions with people through Zoom meetings is that we've actually been able to speed up that implementation process with our customers because now they'll get trained on a specific subject, they'll go and implement that specific part of Qualtrics and then come back to the next subject with more questions and be able to move on through the system that way. And so even with just our personal experiences with moving to remote training for our customers, we've even seen some success there as well. Well, thank you everyone for giving me the opportunity to introduce you to Qualtrics and our training functionality. If you would like more information about our system, I invite you to reach out to us at sales@qualtrics.com or even Karen@qualtrics.com. We also offer 30-minute introductory webinars bi-weekly if that's something that you would like to attend to see more functionality of what our system has to offer. So at this time, Natalia, I want to invite you to join me and we'll go through some of the questions that are coming in.
Sure, I'm right here.
Wonderful. All right. So here's one that we have. Lately, there are many reports about remote sessions being hijacked. When setting up training internally, what precautions should you take?
Excellent question. Yes, unfortunately, we are hearing a lot of the remote sessions and unfortunately sessions with school that have been hijacked and children are exposed to images that they shouldn't be. Unfortunately, there's very little things we can do to prevent very good hijackers from doing so. However, one of the things when you are setting up your training activities, internally or externally, don't make those meetings public. Don't share the link to the teleconference, all the classroom setting on social media. When providing link, provide it directly to people that you want to attend and require them to register. If there's an option, do not let people do not let the system to auto-approve registration. Make sure you actually go in and manually approve them so that you know who's coming into your chat rooms, to your training rooms. Manage screen sharing options, similar like what we did right now. You have to give me permission. I had to release the permission, things like that, so nobody can really take it away from us, from the participants. Ensure users are using the updated version of the remote access and meeting applications. That's very important. Those safety features come in usually with upgrades. And that's really the best that you can do.
Great, thank you. Yeah, I think everyone's starting to see that in the news, and I had seen something recently that New York is starting to make some big changes to that. So definitely, thank you for those tips. Here's another one. If you don't have access to a computer, can you still take online training?
Oh, absolutely. With today's technology, one thing that we're finding as we're diving into expanding our remote portfolio is most platforms there have things that you can download to your phone or your tablet, whether it's Android, whether it's Apple. So definitely anything that can connect you to the Wi-Fi is pretty much a go in this world today.
Great. And a little bit about ANAB. What type of online trainings are you guys currently offering?
We actually have expanded our training portfolio quite a bit lately. We have sat down and discussed what can be offered not online. So, and luckily, many of the things have moved online. So if you look on our website, you will see that all of our typical internal auditor courses, accreditation standards training related to standards like ISO 17025, 17020, measurement uncertainty type of trainings, all have been moved remotely and in different time frames to suit different type of availability and people.
Great. And to kind of expand on that too, some of you guys have been on a number of our webinars that we have done. And just to kind of point out, we have every webinar that we've done that is usually, we do educational based webinars in hopes that we can dive into topics that our customers and and the industries we support are interested in. Every webinar that we do, we record and we make that available to you. This is a link, and I'm just going to share this with you on the Qualtrics website of all of the webinars that we have done and how you can get more information about them. So we dive into everything from corrective action requests, management review, equipment tracking, how to prepare for audits and such. This is a great resource to use as well, especially during this time if you find that this information could be useful. And even if you're not interested in Qualtrics or you don't need specific training at this time, we highly recommend that you check this out. We're happy to share it with you. All right. How do I document my remote learning if a certificate isn't provided? This is a great question, Natalia. We get this question all the time. How do I document my remote learning if a certificate isn't provided?
Do you want to take that one or do you want me to continue?
I want you to answer it first and then I'll talk about it in Qualtrics.
That's good. Well, if we're talking about internal company procedures, you should have something within your system that will tell you where to document the training. I'll give you an example. Some places I work with just had a Word document where the dates, the training title was just to be documented, and we never really needed a certificate for that. I worked with places where it was automated. If you're an individual trying to document all the training you have taken, I would honestly recommend to have a running spreadsheet, whether it is Excel, Word, whatever platform you wish to use, and whether you receive certificate or if you don't, stick it in there, because sometimes you forget the training you've taken. It may become useful when you're looking for those opportunities with employment.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll actually get that question a lot of times with our webinars as people will reach out to us when the webinars are over and be like, I attended your webinar. Is there a way for me to get a certificate of completion or such? I would say specifically in Qualtrics, the whole point of Qualtrics training and testing is how does that relate to the standards? You know, whether you're 9001 or 17025, you have to prove that those training records are being captured. With Qualtrics, what we're seeing from quality managers is that they're creating these trainings and are guiding their employees through them and requiring different things. So if it is a certificate of completion and it's a requirement, it'll ask them through that training. However, if a certificate of completion is not required, you can simply hide that spot or not have that option on the training itself. The other thing that we see is we'll have organizations have optional trainings where employees can elect to do more trainings. However, they still want those trainings to be dialogued and to be tracked. And so within our system, you actually have the ability to allow your employees to sign up for trainings and actually track those trainings that are elective in our system as well. If you ever want to see what that looks like, let us know, and we can set up a time for you to dive in that with some of our account executives. All right, here's another question, and this is from Jennifer, and it's about Qualtrics. You know, how can I export the training matrix? The training matrix that I showed is actually not a report that can be exported in that fashion within Qualtrics itself. However, we do have a lot of organizations, as you can imagine, because the majority of our teams are under some type of ISO accreditation. What they do instead of actually exporting the training matrix, they are actually exporting that training records, and that's what they're sharing with auditors or even team members as need be. So that's something that we can talk about further if you want to as well. Let's see. Here's one for you, Natalia. When settling up internal trainings, what timeframes would you consider work best? Do you do it every day or specific days of the week?
I would say it depends. And of course, I'll always preface it, it is what works best for you and your employees. Keep in mind, same topic, I would recommend doing it as close as possible together. So possibly, let's say, if 2 hours, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, or whatever, keep them as close as possible. To make sure that people don't lose their train of thought and can remember from one day to the next of what has been learned. Separate topics, whatever really works best for you. People may look forward to having every Monday afternoon allocated for training. I don't know if you do different topics so they have that time to not lose the information from previous session.
Great. And last but not least, as a training organization, what questions come up the most related to remote training?
Do I need to download anything to my computer? I get that question
yeah.
50% of the time for every single remote session we run. So what needs to be? So what it tells us is that a lot of people, a lot of organizations with all the safety rules that are being put in place do not want anything to be downloaded to their systems. So definitely something to keep in mind when deciding how to run a platform.
Yeah, no, that's a very good one. I think that lots of organizations definitely have the security on their organization's computers, and for right reasons. I mean, it's so easy to get viruses and such on your computer now. So great question. All right. Well, if there's any additional questions, please feel free to put those in the Q&A section. But I'm not seeing any additional coming in at this time. Again, thank you guys so very much for participating in this webinar today. You know, we're really excited to offer more webinars like this moving forward. So if there's, like Natalia said, if there's any topics that you're interested in, you want to dive into, let us know. Maybe it's something that we can do to help service to your industry. But again, thank you everybody for your time. And we hope that you have a wonderful rest of your day and that you stay safe. Natalia, thank you so very much for joining us. We really appreciate doing this with you.
Thank you so much for having me. Have a great afternoon, morning, whatever, everybody.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you so much, everyone. Bye-bye.